So now, one of the unique things I saw with HealthTech Capital is your venture capital firm only invests in health tech. Most venture capital firms that I see invest in a variety of different verticals. Is it true that you only are just on that one vertical, or and if so, why did you pick just that one vertical?
Well, I founded the group because I was a serial entrepreneur in that space, and for a long time I was this black sheep, and I coined the word health tech because I wanted to differentiate from med tech and biotech, and I also felt it was very different in healthcare IT. The traditional healthcare IT is really more the back-end EMR, systems there, forcing the billing and the communications. I was much more interested in the front end, which is how can we change healthcare delivery in a way that's more cost efficient and improve care too. So where the value proposition is not the clinical outcomes and FDA approval and clinical trials, is to say I can save time. So I was blessed to be involved with some of the granddaddy of this space, which was Pyxis, which we changed the way we deliver medication in a hospital setting there. And, we talked to most of the VC on the West Coast, and they all passed because it was a pure market risk. It was, we were selling a product that was mostly used by the nurses. And we were moving inventory of drugs to the floor using run-of-the-mill technology. There was no patents in the traditional sense. And that became a billion-dollar business. And, Omnicell was another company that's in that space on the supply side. VisiQ got started around this table with two physicians from Hopkins there, where they used the first telemedicines to monitor a patient in the ICU remotely there. So now you could have an intensivist 24/7 monitoring patients in multiple hospitals. And now what they showed was astonishing, that it could decrease by 25 to 30% the mortality and decrease the length of stay. This is the way you change healthcare delivery. And so for a long time it was extremely hard to get this company funded. And so I decided to say, really device is 5% of healthcare spending, drugs is 10 to 12%, but the other 80%, 85%, which is how we deliver healthcare, nobody really spent a lot of time trying to improve the way we did it. It was kind of more the batch process. You go to the ER, you go to the physicians, And so I really have been enamored with how can we use computer and telecommunication technology to make healthcare more efficient, and working on workflow, working on usability, and doing just-in-time delivery of information at the right time to make the right decision. So you get the right drug to the right patient at the right time. And so it was really hard to get funding from traditional life science companies there because they were more into product risk and medical devices and biotech. And then the technology VCs, as soon as you mentioned hospital and FDA, that was not a good thing. So you had a funding gap. So I started a group before digital health was even coined as a name, with the idea of HealthTech Capital will be dedicated to this space. We're going to be focusing on having members who understand data processing, they understand mobility, they understand user engagement, and we're going to have a whole bunch of physicians who wants to change healthcare delivery. We're going to put them together in one group so that we have the people with the expertise on understanding the workflow and the regulatory aspects of the people understanding the enabling technology, and we're going to be able to really help impact how healthcare is being delivered, and we bring that expertise. And again, it is a complex area there, and no VCs or no individuals has these three sets of expertise. The only way you can create is for an ecosystem. And so in addition to have an angel group where people are willing to put their own money and willing to mentor the entrepreneurs, in addition to that, we decide to have relationship with providers, venture capitalists, and industry, because we want to be able to get a multi-million-dollar round for the Series A to show the company that they can validate their product and usually iterate a couple of times based on the feedback. That will bring you to the big, large venture round. And it's that funding gap, to get you through that bridge that's essential, and there is a funding gap right now. And so we're trying to fill it up.
Yeah, I like your definition about health tech, and that's the front end. And I've tried to explain that to people numerous times, and they confuse health tech and healthcare IT. And my feeling was that healthcare IT is all back end stuff, because I also come from a networking background.
Exactly. From
when I worked at Sun Microsystems and also Amdahl, so that was all networking stuff that I was working on. So to me, IT is completely different than health tech, because health tech is all front end.
Yeah.
It's using forward-facing tools like the internet, like mobile, things like that, to really be able to deliver solutions to people immediately.
And that's exactly, I mean, you got it perfectly. I mean, that's exactly where I think the opportunity is enormous, because most of the technology and healthcare IT have been legacy systems. It's the plumbing, it's making sure the water is going for your house. How you use it in your kitchen is the front end. And that is an area there where nobody really spent any time in the past.
Right. And I see a huge amount of potential there.
Oh, it's enormous.
Because you got to think, I grew up in a very rural part of New Jersey. Right. I didn't even grow up in a town. I grew up in a township. The closest town was about 20 miles away. And it would take a little while for, if there was a problem, it took at least 15, 20 minutes or so for an ambulance to come to your home. And then the closest hospital is another half hour to 45 minutes away. And it was in the thick woods, so there's no way a helicopter could drop in there either. So if there were a problem, it may take about an hour for you to get to the hospital. Where with the technology that's available today, you could reduce that time significantly. And with some of the monitoring that I touched upon, like some of the monitoring that can be done, you could detect probably problems that happen well in advance. So you don't have to go and worry about at the last possible second you have to get to the hospital. Where if you're dealing with an hour to get there, you may not be able to get to the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, if you look at what visit you did at the time, it was the same problem, except it was intensive care unit. So you were waiting for whenever the physician was available, which was coming maybe twice a day for a few minutes out of 24 hours. So you have a long delay for response time. The nurses, they were there, but, some of the signs of degradation, they are not something that's visible or that the patient can talk about. So what they're able to show is that by looking at the vital signs, piping them out digitally, because it was the beginning of the digital, and running them through algorithms, you could identify decline before normally you would have seen it. And therefore you could intervene, and you could tie that to the diagnosis. So you will be looking at different things if you have congestive heart failure or diabetes. And now you had a person that could monitor 50 to 100 people, where before you could not afford that. But the technology now enables you to do that. And now you could basically intervene earlier. And then you could validate that intervention really had an outcome, so that for the next time you can even get earlier and earlier. And what they've shown is stunning, is that they decrease the mortality and which by 30%. We have that capability of taking that same concept into the home, which is to say, and it's probably going to take, more data processing power, because now you're talking not about life and death situation there, but more evolution of chronic diseases. But you could start taking some of the sensoring capability, crunch it, have somebody that has some brains that develops some algorithms to know what to do about it, have another high-touch person that reviews it, and then intervene about it. We go back to the discussion we had earlier there. That concept can be applied at home, it could be applied in nursing home, it could apply everywhere. And it is being done. And it is going to, again, the big change is that instead of you, like you described, you have a crisis, you go to your hospitals and hope that an hour later you're not dead. Yeah. We're going to bring healthcare to wherever you are. That's the massive change. You don't go to healthcare, healthcare comes to you. That's a good one, I have to remember
that. So when you look at a company that you want to fund, are there specific bullet points that you look at? Like if somebody came to you and say, I have this great idea, which you probably get that in any given day, probably a couple of times.
Yeah,
is there like a litmus test that you say, okay, they have to go and match up with these things, a couple of things before we even go and start taking a look at it?
I wish there was a scientific formula, but at the early stage, it's more of an art than a science. So typically, what we do, we have a bit of a process. So we ask the company to submit via web portal there. So we ask them to put a video, because it's important to see the person talking. That's like half of it is the person. And then we ask them, to put like PowerPoint and other information about, what's your pain point, what's your value proposition, what's your business models. We ping our members there. We have expertise in this area there. So we get several of our members, clinicians or technical people, to look at the concept. So we get multiple review and ratings. And we do this every month. And then we pick the top 5 every month, the top 5 ratings combined, to select them to come to a screening meeting. And then they present. We see 5 companies. We gave them like a 15-minute presentation, which is telling us why we should be excited as opposed to tell us the whole story. And usually it goes into, what's the pain point? Why do you think you can deliver? What is it? And then we do Q&A, and then we see how they interact with the question we ask them. Typically, out of the 5, we pick 2. Then we coach them. Most entrepreneurs have a good idea, but they don't know how to communicate it effectively. Would it be verbally or for their PowerPoint slides? So we usually have one of our members coaching them, giving them some feedback. We invite them back 2 weeks later to a dinner where we give them more time, and we invite full membership to come. And then based on that, then we put together a due diligence list. No, I say that because every deal is slightly different. So in certain cases, clearly the entrepreneur team is important. If you don't have a good one, even if it's a good idea, it will probably pass at that stage, which is the early stage. So one is the strength of the management team, or can it be supplemented if there's weaknesses? Number 2 is that how exciting is the product in the market? Are you solving a big problem? And you have something that you somehow can defend. It doesn't have to be from IP, but for barriers of entry that you build for your revenue models. And how much money do you need to get to an inflection point? Because, we are funding to the next level of funding, so it's important that we don't do the bridge to nowhere, but that we basically help you for the money, the mentoring, the introduction that we can do to achieve significant milestones so that the next round will be a higher price, and we can introduce you to the people who can invest in the next round. So it's really understanding that whole aspect there. So I wish that I could just crunch this into a formula, but it's a bit of an art.
Okay. So, well, you did answer the question actually fairly well as far as kind of what they're looking for and how they go about, where they can go and start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the conference that you're doing in October, what's the date on that? I believe that was like October
30th.
October 30th.
It's going to be at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. And we're very excited by it. We have 20 amazing panelists, all the thought leaders in the space. The first panel is going to be the unmet need of the providers, with some leading providers telling us, where is the healthcare delivery going. We have Chuck Sanders from Aetna that's going to tell us, how Aetna is trying to change the payer world. We have a whole panels on the opportunity coming out with the health insurance exchange and the change in their at-risk payment systems. We have another panel on how can big company partner with young company and the plus and the minus of doing that. So we have GE and Athena Health and coming in there. We have a 4th panel, which is how can mobility change aging at home, what we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. And it's more than just getting a sensor, it's getting that full solution there and how that works, and with Qualcomm involved with that, which is very active in the space. And then we have a judge panel where we have that judging competition there. And then in parallel, we have that demo hall where you can talk to young entrepreneurs, and hopefully we can force the ecosystem to communicate with each other.
Now, what's the ideal target audience for the conference?
So right now, our expectations is that a third of the members, the registrants, are going to be investors, which is what we've accomplished so far. We probably expect a good 40 to 50% are going to be entrepreneurs at different stage, from young one to maybe a Series A and B. And then the rest are going to be industry executive looking for business development relationships, as well as providers.
Oh, okay. So about how many people do you expect to be attending the conference?
Last year, it was our first conference. We had 260 people. This year we're way above in the registration, on track to be above that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's great.
Ask me on October 29th.
So, and how do they find out about it? About the conference? So
we have a website called HealthTechConference.com, and it's health with an H, so it's HealthTech conference.com. You can also go via the HealthTech Capital website, and there's a link between both websites because it's organized by HealthTech Capital.
Yeah. And I also put a link on there from my website over.
That would be great.
Yeah, well, that's already on there.
Yeah, I appreciate your help there.
Yeah, so your logo's already on there, as well as I have a little page you guys gave me, and that's on there as well.
Yeah. I think if you could help us, if you have LinkedIn and social media, spread the word, because I think we put a lot of effort in creating a value-add conference, and we'd love, as many entrepreneurs to be able to benefit from it.
Yeah.
As well as strategic players,
Yeah, if you give me clips to send out every once in a while, I can easily pop that out on my, if I put it on my LinkedIn, it automatically goes out to my Twitter feed at the same time.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, I'll send you a couple of those.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.